Good morning.
Yes.
Happy July 4th and/or happy 4th of July. I'm the Reverend Kevin Tarser here with Beth Carroll, Corey Silva, and Rain Thibault, music director Jordan Thomas Rose, with Steve Wiley on percussion today, David Sampson behind the computer, Marilyn Winters joining us via the wizardry of technology, and Wendy Wernig assisting Beth with the chat. This morning, this 4th of July, we celebrate the gifts and acknowledge the shortcomings of democracy as our nation has embodied it, and ask ourselves what's needed. It's good to be together. We begin in song with an adaptation in English of the words of the 13th century Persian Islamic Sufi poet, scholar, and teacher Jalal al-Din Rumi, whose wisdom and lineage seek a deep identity and harmony with all that exists. Colleagues have pointed out to us that missing in our usual singing of "Come, come, whoever you are the theologically essential words, "Though you've broken your vows 1,000 times." Words that highlight the merciful nature of Allah that's so central to Islamic theologies, and the acknowledgement that it is human nature to make mistakes, including ones that cause harm. We begin with those words this morning in this imperfect nation with its yet to be fulfilled promises and our own very human hearts. Though you've broken your vows 1,000 times, come, yet again, come.
Good morning, wanderers, worshipers, lovers of leaving. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Community of the Mountains. I'm Beth Caro, and as worship associate, it is my pleasure to welcome you to this 4th of July Sunday service. Whether you come with joy or despair in your hearts and minds, or a more complicated mix of emotions, welcome. From wherever you have wandered in your journey to here and now, whether you are just starting out or if you are nearing the end of your travels, if your path is straight and clear, or if it is twisted, rough, and uncertain, it is good to share the road together today. UUCM strives to be a welcoming church that celebrates diversity in all its forms. And however you identify, whatever pronouns you use, and whomever you love, may you feel welcomed here. Here at our building at 246 South Church Street in Grass Valley, California, we fly 3 flags: an Earth flag, a Progress Pride flag, and an American flag. Whether the sight of the American flag stirs in you the urge to stand and salute or take a knee in silent protest, you're in the right place. The fireworks in the night sky, iconic symbols of our nation celebrating its independence from foreign rule, may take your breath away in wonder and delight. Or they may trigger great anxiety and fears of wildfire, concerns for your pets and wildlife, or even conjure difficult memories of the sights and sounds of warfare. If this American holiday makes your heart swell with patriotic pride or fill with remorse, anger, or even shame, or all of this and more, may you know yourself not alone in your complexity of feelings. For we know that we need not think alike to love alike, and that we may be of one heart, even though we are not of one opinion. Today, for these precious moments that we share and make holy by our presence together, may we be reminded not only of our independence, but of our interdependence. Come, come, whoever you are, let us worship together.
Every time we light a candle, we remember the past. Whoever forgets the past must live through it again. But those who remember the past find in it directions for the future, for the present and the future, and can revive tradition in all its richness. It is the duty of each generation to study history, so that in the light of the past, it may see clearly what is its own special task. It is our duty, too, on this special occasion. Transylvanian Unitarian Bishop Janos Erdo.
I invite you to light your chalice at home, as Beth has lit our chalice here in the sanctuary. We've been learning in the news of bodies buried at residential schools built to remove Indigenous children from the cultures of their parents and to remove the culture of their heritage from themselves. So far, 7 residential schools have been searched, and the bodies of 1,505 Indigenous children have been found. Between Canada and the United States, there are still 497 more residential schools, including a school in Montana run by Unitarians. When the colonizers arrived in what is now California, there were already 30 million people here. 90% of those original people were murdered. In order to keep this context before us and inspiring our own hearts, that we might continue to learn even when the knowledge is painful, in order to inspire our commitment to seek whatever fragments of repair and healing may be available, we offer the land acknowledgement crafted carefully by spokesperson Shelley Covert with the elders of the local Nisenan tribe.
In our commitment to be in respectful and right relationship with the descendants of this area's indigenous people, we place a small basket of black oak acorns on our altar each week. In doing so, we remind ourselves and acknowledge that the Nisenan people are still here among us today, though nearly invisible, that we are on Nisenan land that was never ceded, and that the original tribal families have yet to recover from the near genocide of their people. As residents or visitors in Nisenan land, let us support the Nevada City Rancheria Nisenan tribe in efforts to stabilize their people, as well as their campaign to restore federal recognition.
Our opening words will come from Marilyn Winters this morning.
For Nothing is Fixed by James Baldwin. For nothing is fixed forever, forever, forever. It is not fixed. The earth is always shifting. The light is always changing. The sea does not cease to grind down rock. For nothing is fixed forever, forever, forever. It is not fixed. The earth is always shifting. The light is always changing. The sea does not cease to grind down rock.
Move right into joys and sorrows, this weekly ritual of honoring what's in our hearts, what we carry with us. So here's the carbon footprint. Carbon dioxide that's produced by the burning of 1 gallon of gas in a car. So it's this giant shoe, and it's in the parade today, and will show up in other places around, help inspire people to care for the environment. I invite you to search your heart for all that's present for you this morning. I invite you, if you wish, to type into the chat some piece of what you're carrying, some piece of what you notice. I invite you to breathe into the moment, to let the music carry you as we hold each other. And there are so many other things. Beth has lit a candle once again in Linda Siska's beautiful setting to honor all the losses that ripple outward from the pandemic, all that's related to it. And I know that you carry much more in your heart. I'd like you to surface your own prayers, your own commitments, your own thoughtfulness and intentions in response to what you feel. And I invite you into a time of meditation this morning. I invite you to sing with Jordan, America the Beautiful. It's problematic in a number of ways, and in Catherine Lee Bates' heart, it is meant to speak to the unfulfilled promises of this nation in the language of her moment. Sure, spacious skies, amber waves, purple mountains, amazing. Now, let's crown that goodness with human goodness, she asks. Brotherhood, sisterhood from sea to shining sea. Yes, those pilgrim feet a thoroughfare for freedom beat, but across the back and the necks and lives of indigenous people. Let's find ways to mend the flaws and confirm our nation's soul in self-control. At last, Catherine pleads. The gold of America is not all beautiful and pure. It is very much yet in need of refining, said Catherine Lee Bates. Refining until we define success not by material wealth, but by nobleness and the divine values of love, compassion, justice. Oh, beautiful for a patriot dream that sees beyond the shiny glitter and glitz at the surface to a time when America's promise is not dimmed by so many human tears. I invite you to sing America the Beautiful in this moment, with all there is to celebrate about the nation, and with all there is to lament and yet to address. I invite you to sing it from your heart and your own deepest patriot dream for this nation.
Oh, beautiful for spacious sky, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains, majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for pilgrim feet whose stern passion stress, a thoroughfare for freedom beat across the wilderness. America, America, God mend thine every flaw. Confirm thy soul in self-control, thy liberty in love. Oh, beautiful for heroes proved in liberating strife, who more than self their country find, till all success be nobleness, and every gain divine. Oh, beautiful four-page dream that sees beyond the years. 9 alabaster cities gleam, undimmed by human tears. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with sisterhood, from sea to shining sea.
Beyond the Zero-Sum Game by Nathan C. Walker. For centuries, insiders had been democratizing their religions. Incremental moments of institutional reform had led to a new era of theological enlightenment.
From out of ancient times into the twilight of now, these reformers have made a sacred vow to never mischaracterize freedom as a zero-sum game. True freedom is not jealous. True freedom is not envious. True freedom is not spiteful. True freedom does not desire to restrict the rights of others. True freedom knows not a selfish thought, knows not how to threaten. To sense true freedom is to know that your win is my glory, and that your suffering is inextricably tied to my own. For the sum of all that is holy shines far beyond the tools of our evolving democracy, from party jingles to picket signs.
The sum of all that is holy is found in our collective desire to know freedom, not as a political slogan, but as a way of life. I invited UUCM members and friends to send me their thoughts about July 4 and about democracy. Thank you to everyone who replied. For Bob Miller, who has lived as the citizen of another nation, July 4th is, quote, an unfortunate display of American exceptionalism. For Curran Hildebrand also, July 4th is, quote, more negative than positive, too much hoopla without knowledge and honesty about history, he writes. Too much nationalistic nearsightedness, too much yay for democracy from every quarter, as long as my people win. In a similar vein, Beth Carroll writes that we are champions of a country we really know nothing about. We slap ourselves on the back for being the best country in the world, but we don't really know or don't care if that is really true. Taylor Carey suggests that the 4th of July should be, quote, a noisy, disjointed celebration of goodwill and gratitude for the perspicacity of our founders, meaning their ready insight or shrewdness. I have to look it up every time. We might try on the idea that we have been poor stewards of their legacy, Taylor adds. Dave McLeod quoted to me Winston Churchill, who in 1947 said, no one pretends that democracy is perfect or all-wise. Indeed, it has been said that democracy is the worst form of government, except for all those other forms that have been tried from time to time. Marilyn Winters wrote of her immigrant parents, both of whom lived through the 1918 flu pandemic. They both loved this country, she writes, and never missed an opportunity to vote at every election. The United States was the shining beacon on the hill for thousands of immigrants during that period. July 4th is a celebration of the light that shone on our beloved country and the right to vote. And bridging that wide range of responses, Gail Johnson Vaughn writes, July 4th is a time to celebrate America as a nation of indigenous people and immigrants on a quest to be as great as our mythology-infused self-image. Thank you for those replies. It was really wonderful receiving. Those are portions of them, of course. Personally, I've been feeling rather discouraged lately about the state of national politics and the health of our nation's democracy. More to the point, I've been feeling disheartened and fearful and angry about democracy's direction in the hands of our current citizenry and political leaders. This past week's United States Supreme Court decision, with all the Jim Crow past that it echoes and the future it portends, allowing targeted voter suppression wrapped in the guise of broad voter protection, called up a deep weariness in me as I imagined a long and difficult road ahead. And since I haven't done very much on the ground to steer democracy otherwise, nor borne the brunt of its shortcomings, I realize that my discouragement and anger are luxuries, and indulgent luxuries at that. I know that some of you are feeling discouraged much more directly and in your own ways. So given the centrality of the ideal and the practice of democracy in our Unitarian Universalist religious tradition, I'm here to try to give myself and anyone else who might benefit a pep talk of sorts, or at least a hang in there talk. I'm hearing in my heart this morning a front-edge question that I shared on a Sunday in January, shortly after the insurrection at the United States Capitol. A question from writer, educator, activist Terry Tempest Williams. Do we, she asks, do I, do you, do we have enough resolve in our hearts to act courageously, relentlessly, without giving up ever, trusting our fellow citizens to join with us in our determined pursuit of a living democracy? My trust in my fellow citizens has been tested and taxed, and so I'm needing William's question right in front of me, a question that our religious tradition asks us too in its own way. Our Unitarian Universalist Association's fifth principle names our commitment, our sacred promise to one another, to affirm and actively to promote the right of individual conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. It hints at an inherent and eternal tension in democracy, that a government of, by, and for the people couples majority rule with limitations on the power of that majority, limitations that protect the rights of those in the minority, a tension that will never be resolved. I drew on Benjamin Franklin's wit for the title of today's sermon. Franklin wrote, "Democracy is two wolves and a lamb voting on what they're going to have for lunch." Pithy and insightful, it captures that central inherent tension. Have you ever felt like a lamb among wolves when a vote was taken? I have. Often, people use only that portion of Franklin's words, but there are more. Democracy is two wolves and a lamb voting on what they're going to have for lunch. Liberty, Franklin continues, is a well-armed lamb contesting the vote. Overtones of the January 6th insurrection, right? When people, feeling like outnumbered lambs, used their weaponry to contest the vote violently. in pursuit of their own sense of their liberty. I think that people on all sides feel like outnumbered lambs at the moment. In part, ironically, because the difference in numbers on either side of the divide is portrayed as so close. 2 years ago, after 3 years of study and reflection in Unitarian Universalist congregations around the country, our Association of Congregations voted to adopt a statement of conscience, which is one of the ways we use together mobilize energy, ideas, resources, and effective action around a common issue. That 2019 statement of conscience names that we, Unitarian Universalists, must continually strive toward uncorrupted democracy. It says, as a means to an end, democracy organizes decision-making among diverse people and preserves stability while balancing competing interests. But democracy is not merely a means, it goes on. It is an end in itself, an ethical idea, a moral and spiritual way of relating to one another. Sadly, many of our democratic institutions have been corrupted into being merely a means for giving powerful interests the appearance of legitimacy. Our own statement of conscience as an institution. There are those who claim that that is the nature of democracy, Dave McLeod points out to me, serving only to mask the reality of elite rule, and there's more to chew on there. Our Unitarian Universalist faith tradition yet claims otherwise, and has since 1648, when it broke with its parents, broke from their parents' traditions to establish the autonomy of congregations, believing that the depth and success of our shared religious life depends on honoring every member's voice and vote. Beyond the political, it is a spiritual commitment to remain open to the voices of one another. In its very first sentence, this 2019 Democracy Uncorrupted Statement of Conscience acknowledges that democracy in the United States has always been compromised. It names that at the nation's very founding, participation in governance was almost entirely limited to white male landowners. Wealth was created from those excluded. Land seized from indigenous peoples who were forcibly assimilated or removed and or exterminated. And labor exploited from enslaved Africans, indentured servants, immigrants, prisoners, the working poor, and women and children. So we are not being invited to make America great again. There has never been an uncorrupted democracy here. It is a call instead to strive toward an uncorrupted democracy, knowing, given human nature, that the day-to-day journey is really about acting courageously, relentlessly, without ever giving up, toward an ever less corrupted democracy. And why? The statement of conscience explains that whereas the dominant religious traditions in our nation have held a theology of sin that sees human nature as fundamentally corrupt, leading to a religious goal of suppressing sinfulness, our UU theology instead locates healing and wholeness in relationship, and salvation in being open to diverse perspectives and building connections. It's how we are saved. In my response to my query to members and friends, Lisa Hayden wrote, "It would be wonderful if people and governments could realize how the first principle and the seventh principle are one and the same. For those who don't know, the first principle honors the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and the seventh affirms the interdependent web of which we are a part." How really interconnected they are, writes Lisa, and how this relates to Dr. Martin Luther King's concept of a world house, wherein all the peoples of the world appreciate one another and place the highest importance on cooperation and on giving thanks for the abundance and beauty and wonder the Creator has given us to share. Another UUCM member, Janet Bullock, also speaks to building connections and relationship, as she so often does. American democracy, she writes, is incredibly important and precious, even while flawed. It's one of the better institutions that humans have created, and we continue to make it a realization for all. It is undergoing great strain, she adds. There's increasing polarization in this country happening for various reasons. I believe that we feed it and inadvertently contribute to its hardening by putting out of our hearts those who hold differing opinions than ours, judging them as wrong. Instead of judgment and shaming, might there be a place, a necessary place, she asks, for discernment, for learning about and looking with intelligence at injustice, at shameful behavior, ours and others. Our democracy calls us for freedom and justice for all. It is our democratic duty to address that, she says, but if we're to be effective, rather than using the language of fighting, wouldn't we be wise to work for justice, champion freedom and equity for all, stand up, or as we might say, rise up for love of everyone? Janet speaks to one of the primary requirements for a healthy democracy, the need for common cause wherever we can find it, unity of cause in the midst of our diversities. Instead, as Mike Hogue points out in American Imminence, we are being driven now into communities of similarity. Uncertainty will do that, he points out. Drive us into communities of similarity for our comfort. But what's needed for a resilient and less corrupted democracy, he says, are communities of solidarity, not similarity. Diverse individuals and communities organized around a common cause, a politics of common purpose rather than of special interest. In fact, he writes, for the most resilient and most effective democracy, we need the most diverse unity we can find. Not the most harmonized unity, the most diverse unity. It's the unity part that feels so incredibly elusive these days. But even within that elusiveness and our concerns about the frailty or the demise of democracy, there is room for hope in the widening cracks. As Mike Hogue puts it, the institutional deformation of democracy opens a clearing, a space in which to reimagine democracy not as a set of institutional structures that we must rely upon, but rather as a set of practices we undertake and promises we make, and thereby to reclaim the spirit of democracy from its formal government and corporate enclosures. As if democracy is not out there, but here, to let it become a way of living. Gail Johnson Vaughan got to the present opportunity in her reply. I feel a deep patriotic loyalty to the ideal of liberty and justice for all. Never before have I felt this much hope for our nation actually becoming the democracy many mistakenly think we are. With a video camera in the hands of most of our citizens, it is simply no longer possible to hide undemocratic atrocities that make a mockery of phrases like liberty and justice for all, and that light the passions of courageous love to stand strong in the truth. Claiming our heritage to be a great and true democracy will take a level of courageous love and action not unlike signing the Declaration of Independence. So what do I think we should do, Janet Bullock asks. Learn about our own racism and life mistakes and the internal triggers that make us reactive. And then she says, building bridges in the grocery stores and letters to the editor in the neighborhood. Loving ourselves and each other with all our flaws, doing our best. Gail says, learn the talking points and skills needed to talk with courageous love to those who see things differently. Kern adds, teach our children basic civics, all of history, whether we like it or not. Communication, debate skills, curiosity, interest in and compassion for difference, and the ability to love and like oneself without disliking or hating others. So none of this is new, as you know. We've been naming it all along. It's like discovering that we are lost and traveling in circles when we recognize that we keep coming back to the same place again. hoping for a different, easier path this time. But this is it, at the heart of our Unitarian Universalist tradition. Connecting meaningfully across difference, which I find challenging right now. Widening the diversity of our unity, recognizing our interdependence, searching for common cause no matter how daunting or impossible it may seem. Political theorist Sheldon Wolin reassures us that ordinary individuals are capable of creating new cultural patterns of commonality at any moment, even this one. There are many valid and important critiques of democracy and varied smart solutions proffered to address democracy's shortcomings, and they will be part of the work. But Lisa captured the spiritual crossroads at which our tradition's focus on democracy lives. The intersection of individual worth and dignity and our thorough interconnectedness and interdependence. It's in the middle of this intersection that this community always lives. In the middle of this intersection that we are called to cultivate our resolve, dang it, inspire one another's relentlessness, and call forth each other's courageous love, and again, in pursuit not of similarity, but of common cause, and the most diverse unity we can find. For the sake of our own souls and democracy that better serves humanity. As difficult and even impossible as that may feel, so may we be together, here in this congregation, and in the communities and the nation that we call home.
Unitarian Universalists around the world hold a great vision of a world filled with peace and justice, love and joy. No matter its size, each UU congregation depends on each one of its members to make a commitment of time, energy, and resources to help make that great vision a reality. Additionally, each month, through various ways, including our Pass the Plate program, UUCM members and friends support an organization which aligns with our values of social and environmental justice. 25% of our offering this month will support Interfaith Food Ministry, which believes in a community where no one should feel the hurt of hunger. Interfaith Food Ministry works creatively and compassionately to feed the hungry and reduce food insecurity right here in our home of Nevada County. Several of our members have generously served for years as volunteers with IFM, and there are more food distribution shifts to fill. Please consider dropping in to help Monday through Friday, 8 to 12. Individually and together in our UU congregations and in our greater communities, we are building a world filled with peace and justice, love and joy. Please give generously. Thank you. We dedicate these offerings to the uplifting of our sixth UU principle, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all.
Thank you, Beth, for serving as worship associate this morning, as well as doing some chat hosting with Wendy. Thank Wendy for your help. David, thanks for being behind the scenes. Linda, for the beautiful, really beautiful, calm setting with this subtle red, white, and blue this morning. Jordan and Steve, thank you for the music. It was nice to sing along with other folks in the room this morning. Thank you, Corey and Rain and Marilyn, for being readers this morning. I want to give you a quick heads up that next week will be out of the ordinary. We're going to have a service at the park on site, but since it's supposed to be 106 degrees that day, we're going to have the service early at 9. And then we'll have a Zoom service broadcasting that service at 11. So we'll communicate all week about that. But just to give you a heads up, 9 o'clock at Condon Park on site for those who want to do that next Sunday. And then 11 o'clock via Zoom. I invite you to sing together the fire of commitment, to name our own commitment to the democracy that we want to see in the world.
From the light of days, remember, burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and souls ablaze, when our hunger and our passion will do call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the stories of our living brings a song both brave and free, calling pilgrim through to witness for the life of liberty. When a fire of commitment sets our mind and souls ablaze, and our hunger and our passion needs to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the dreams of youthful vision comes a new prophetic voice, which demands a deeper justice built by our courageous choice. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and souls ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on the way, when I live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.
Our closing words this morning come from my colleague, the Reverend Barbara J. Peskin. Because of those who came before, we are. In spite of their failings, we believe. Because of and in spite of the horizons of their vision, we too dream. Let us go remembering to praise, she says, to live in the moment, to love mightily, to bow to the mystery. And I would add, to find our way together. I invite you into the community benediction this congregation shares each Sunday to remind us that we are not alone and that the work of Sunday morning carries into the week. Let us together carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. We'll see you next Sunday, 9 o'clock at the park for those who want to come to Condon Park on a warm morning, and 11 o'clock via Zoom for everyone else.
And get ready. If you'd like, you can turn on your camera and we'll unmute everyone shortly so you can say hello. You'll be invited to choose a breakout room for conversation, but you may stay in the larger group or come back to it at any time. And here's a list of today's breakout rooms.